Tales from the wild. Stories from the heart. A journey into the mind and soul of fired-up business professionals where they share their vision for the future. And hear from a different non-profit organization every month as they create awareness of their goals and their needs. Dive into a world of untamed passion as we join our host, Shireen Buerta, for this month's episode of Friends from Wild Places.
I have a question. So most folks that are hiring you and your services, are they coming to you like in crisis? Like, we have this team, everybody's going in a different direction and we want to bring everybody on board? Or are people being more proactive to say, maybe we're a new business, or maybe we're looking to have our team get inspired? So what do you see more out in the real world with your line of work? Are you helping people in crisis, or are you having people be more proactive before things fall apart?
Well, generally they're in crisis. Generally. I mean, what happens is they all of a sudden realize they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
My biggest customer was promoted to a COO, and she didn't even know she needed key performance indicators. How do I know who's doing well? What's my team expected to do, and how are they doing it? And how do we watch that go up? There were so many things that needed to be done, and she was just lost. And I was recommended by one of my customers in the security industry. So, and she did great. I mean, I worked for her for many years until the company was sold and by a big company who does what I do. But she went from a COO to a president to now CEO. So she's amazing. There are some customers who just don't want to listen or follow the track. But in most cases, unfortunately, it starts when they're in, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. And in your opinion, can employees be rehabilitated? Like, can they be, or do they have to be exited? Like, what is, I did HR for over 20 years in two different fields, medical and mortuary. So I'm pretty familiar with people, and I don't think they change much across industries. So what's your take on that? Can they be rehabbed or not?
In most cases, they can.
Okay.
So it's a lot of people, when they come to me and they say, John Doe is a problem and I need to get rid of him. And I'll say, well, let's look at it. And I find that there are a few things. Number one is, are they very clear, very, very clear on the expectations? And a lot of employers say, oh, they know what to do. But when I talk to the employee and I talk to the boss, and individually, and say, tell me the expectation, very often it's different. So being very clear, knowing what's expected, not just in the job description, not just in you have to do this, but how to do it. You could lose a client with one interaction. And with today's internet, that interaction, that problem can be spread across thousands of people. So it's really looking at, how am I developing these people so they know how to handle a problem, so they don't upset a customer. But, generally it's, are they clear on expectations? Check that box, right? Do they have the tools to do it? And sometimes it's a matter of helping them with focusing on the right things. So if they think they're so busy they can't do the major things, then we work on the time management. What is distracting them? What are those problems? And how do we fix those problems so that we put a Band-Aid on it, right? But we also fix the root cause of the problem so that it doesn't continue. So do they have the tools, which is sometimes training, sometimes it's a computer, whatever it is. And then there's learning curve. So just because you teach me something today doesn't mean I'm going to remember it tomorrow. I already taught them that. Well, yes. Maybe you did, but you taught them a million things and we can only grasp so much stuff. So that's all a part of it. And then, do they want to do it? So some people just don't want to do it. And some people are just incapable. For example, when I first took my vice president position, my boss told me, you have to get rid of this one manager. And I said, to myself, look, I've rehabbed a lot of people. I'm not going to just get rid of them. I'm going to work with them. Well, this guy was so wonderful, so kind, so caring. He was so engaged. But you know what? He couldn't hold people accountable. He just couldn't do it. He was in the wrong role, and I left him in it too long. So it's not like I haven't made the same mistake, but some people are just not meant for the job or just don't want to do the work. So that's kind of how I look at things.
Right, right, right. And I want to go back for a minute because I don't want to go too far forward without taking a step back. So first of all, can you share about your experience? That's an amazing achievement with Cornell, your studies there, as far as what was that like, and what area of studies did you do that now have helped you in your business?
Well, the reason that they sent me there was because they wanted me in a labor relations role, which it was back then I was in nuclear security. So security guards in nuclear power stations, providing the security there. And I worked, and they were union sites. And my boss wanted me in this role because he said I was very good at looking both sides of an issue. A lot of times union and management just fight. Well, that doesn't fix things. Fighting doesn't fix things. It's finding out what we need to do. So I said, not that I wouldn't like to do it, but I don't like to fail. And I don't know what the heck, I don't know anything about labor law and stuff like that. So it really helped me in that role. We did a lot of amazing things with the union. We really worked together. It took some time, but just understanding labor in a more official way certainly helps in any role you're in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very nice. Very nice. And I have one more question, then I'll turn it back over to Shireen. From your experience, over the years, we've seen, or I've seen, I should say, some transition with companies, for example, making, let's say, like obviously with the pandemic period going virtual, right? So a lot of the businesses transition virtual. Then emerging out of the pandemic, it's like some went back fully in person, others went hybrid, others created more of an ambient or atmosphere that's more productive. I remember, I think it was actually Google and Amazon companies that had a very strategic, like, little pods for people to rest and coffee stations and things of that. What's your take over your evolving into your own business and having come from, really good studies and things? What is that doing? The culture, I would say, that different culture, and how are people achieving that in the virtual world now?
It's rough. So if you have if you do have virtual and you can't get away from it, then try to have hybrid, have them come in and work so much. People need to connect with other people. Most people stay because of their connections. Even if they love their company, how do they know their company? Like I had one client whose employee left, and when I talked to them, because I try to dig into why they're leaving and stuff, and I said, well, tell me about your company. Well, a company is the person, right? So Apple is a company, but people don't know an Apple. They know who they worked for. That's who represents the company. They know who they work with. They make those connections. And there's a lot that happens when you're together. So the way I handle it with customers that have virtual, let people work all virtual, is have a lot of activities together, make memorable events so that they connect with each other and they get to know each other and they have fun in, not just work, but get them together, have some work stuff, and have a lot of playtime so that they can connect. So I hope, did that answer your question?
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. Yeah, thank you.
I'm learning a lot, Irma, because I mean, you're very good at what you do. And sitting here and listening, I'm taking notes. So I appreciate everything that you're chatting about today. Going back to just you and your journey as a business owner, what would you say has been one of the biggest lessons that you've learned and how you've gotten over that as a business owner?
Well, that really came in stages. right? There's different lessons as you grow your business. So the first one was, I think, understanding that you could win the battle but still lose the war. So, and I guess that probably was more when I was in labor relations, working for another company. So that might not be a fair one, but it's still an important thing to learn. So if, for example, if you're working with unions, you can win all the arbitrations, right? You can come out as the winner and then have people who hate you. So it's not just what you think is important, but what really is important. Again, where you should focus. Don't underestimate marketing. You know, people, I don't care how good I am, doesn't matter. If nobody knows about me, then what good is it? I mean, I'm not going to get out there. And then the people side of the business is so important. I don't care if you have one employee. You really need to love them. And I say love, it's an emotion, but they need to love you. I'll give you a quick thing. So I have people that call me a lot and say, gee, I think I'm hiring the wrong person. And I talk about this in my speeches and when we're looking at problem solving. And so when I look into it, because I'll do some research, they'd give me permission to contact the people that left. They'd say, I bring them in, I train them, and then they're gone. Well, when I did the research, some of them hired poorly, I'll give you that. But in most cases, that wasn't the problem. If you hire me and my resume's out there are still other people calling me. So we changed their problem from how do I hire better to how do I retain new hires? And the goal is, I always tell clients, your goal should be that they go home and say, I love that place. And if other people call them for a job, they say, nope, I found something other than, well, what are you paying? So I hope that answered your question.
This is very
Yeah.
good. This is all very good because for me, I'm a one-man band. I have been for years now. And I think my biggest and I know the time's coming when I'm going to have to hire my first employee, but I've got to be honest, I think my biggest struggle that I have to get over first is part the difficulty of trusting another person to do as good of a job as I can do. So that trust, first of all. And the other thing is I'm always scared of hiring the wrong person. Like I wouldn't want someone that's got the wrong intentions in my business, is trying to capture my clients and then resign. I've heard horror stories of employees, just other business owners hiring not the best employees. But I love what you said, Irma. I do want to do that though. I want to create a space for my employees to feel loved and feel appreciated and valued. And I want them to feel like they don't want to leave because of the environment that I've created for them. So I like what you're saying, and I hope I can
Now,
help
I
with
will
that.
tell you, a lot of people hold themselves back because they have the same fears that you do. So you're not alone, but you just can't grow until you do that. How much can you grow without killing yourself and working, 84 hours a day?
So true.
So there are ways to, there's no guarantees, of course. You can hire somebody that's really good at pulling things over you. But one of my partners is somebody who does background screening. She worked in the nuclear industry. That's how I knew her. So, and she's very affordable. So making sure you do background screening and how you interview them and how you get references. I mean, a lot of employers won't give information, right? They're afraid of being sued. But I have ways of, I want to know anybody who will talk to me about them, whether they were a coworker. And you wouldn't believe, poor employees think they have friends and they don't. You can get a lot of information. But, I loved my one boss so much, and he really gave me a lot of the basis for my high value employee focus. And when I left him, I was recruited away. I gave him a 2-month notice. And the company that hired me said, I can't wait for 2 months. I said, I'm sorry then, I'm not coming. And they gave me the leniency to do that because I loved him. I truly did. I still do, still good friends. So there are ways to get past some of that stuff. And some of it is accepting that everything won't be exactly the way you do it, but some of it might even be better.
That's true. It's the
Yeah.
control, I guess. Hey, like control. It's being a business owner, you've got control of your business. So it's that handing and over the part of your business that you've been doing for such a long time that you know you're doing excellently and your clients love it. It's just about your business. But it's that trust and that letting go of control and going, okay, I'm going to trust you. I've trained you enough. Now I think you can do this. And just,
Right.
yeah.
Right. You can do it. You can do it. I'm sure of it.
I have some just an area that I want to explore a little bit with you. So from where I sit in my current position working with students, I hear a lot and see about lack of training in the workplace, right? Or being trained by somebody that doesn't have your best interest in mind. So for example, and there's been some research that looking into as far as like bullying in the workforce. Okay. So meaning that like, let's say you have somebody that's leaving a position because it no longer suits that person. And now they are in charge of training the new person. They may not want that company to be successful. They may not want that person to be successful. So what and if any recommendations on that side of things that maybe some businesses that are listening to this podcast, right, like the owners or managers should be aware of to saying maybe having the person that's leaving train the new person may not be the best interest of the company or for the potential of the new hire.
So we have egos, right? If I leave a position, I should care about the company and the employee taking over. But I might feel like, well, gee, I want them to miss me. So I'm not going to do this. My suggestion is to really reverse the way you're working it and work on a growth and development program. So start having people prepare for the next role. And that doesn't guarantee them they're going to get the position because you can't guarantee that. They're still going to have to prove themselves, right? But let people, if they're interested in certain roles, just develop a little bit, work with that person, work with each other so that they're learning different jobs so that you at least can continue your business if that person leaves. Some people don't even give a notice, which is, death by suicide. I mean, it's crazy. But there are people who don't even give you that notice. So I would not give somebody who was leaving, unless I knew them well, that job. I would work on a growth and development plan to get people prepared so that they can learn different skills. And that also helps with employee retention because employees like to know that there's some growth capability. And it shows them that you care about them, that you want them to grow in the company. So there's a lot of different reasons that I recommend that.
Right. It's almost like it seems like from what I'm taking away, if I can share it, it seems like cross training, but
Right.
but much deeper and in not just covering for the day or covering for somebody's vacation or somebody's maternity leave or something like that, but really understanding the mission or vision of the company to be able to assume other positions, growth roles, and potential future happier employees, right? Is that what I'm
And
taking?
it's actually putting them in the role. So working with someone, if I need an accountant, right? And somebody's interested in accounting, then little splurts of, but scheduled, an actual program where I can work with that person and learn a strategic pathway little by little, not to interrupt my job too much. And then, teach them when I work with companies on training their employees, it's not just a matter of teaching them, because as I said, there's a lot of learning curve, right? Teaching them, letting them watch you watch them, right? You put them in the role. And then when you feel confident that they feel that they can do the job, then give them a little project here and there. So it really prepares people and it makes it interesting.
Right. Right. And do you find with your services, I mean, can you come into a company and turn it around and then have them have their own tools to move forward? Or do you quote unquote have to be on retainer for them? Or is that part of, your like proposed package, I would say, for the company? Like, are you always with them or are they okay to go?
Yeah. So if I'm doing my job well, they should be able to fire me because they don't need me anymore.
That's a motto and a half, Irma. You're like, if I do my job well, I expect to be fired. Like,
Yes. But what happens is but there's always problems here and there. So what happens is and I just charge hourly. So you could use me as much or as little. I'm not one of these people that say you have to pay me $50,000 a month. No. But as they have turnover and things, they still usually maybe once a month we'll do even just a Q&A, like office hours. I'll be available for certain hours that your supervisors can come on or whoever and ask questions or things like that. So usually they stay with me, except, this one company, I mean, they have this whole other, this big company that has pretty much, but I still hear from my client.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And what would you say are like, if you had to give top 3 reasons, bulk them together, lump them together, cross cultures, big and small businesses, thousands of employees, 2 employees. I've always heard the expression back in the day. It was like, if you have 1 employee, you have an HR issue. So what are the 3 main areas that you feel really are the top 3 areas for companies struggling or with employees? Is it, let me just give you from examples, like, would it be, not feeling appreciated? Would it be not being trained? Would it be no communication with higher administration? What, from your, everything that you've seen cross culture companies, what would your top 3 be?
Well, your direct supervisor is the most important person that company needs to focus on. Because if I work for you, doesn't matter what the CEO does. You're the one that's going to train me or make sure I get trained, protect me against the big bad wolves up in corporate, right? Because there's a lot of pressure. The higher you go in an organization, the more pressure there is and the more focus on the bottom line. So you have to meet that bottom line, but it's how you do it. And that immediate supervisor is the most important person for each employee. The other thing is having a clear chain of command. Making sure that if I report to 3 people and they're all over the place, it just is confusing. Who's holding me accountable? Usually it's nobody, right? God, there's so many things. I don't know how to pick 3. But it's really getting people to love you. I don't mean by giving them what they want, I mean by taking good care of them, even if that means hard conversations, making them know how appreciated they are. I had a guy who I wouldn't work for. When he talked to me about his employee, he said, I told this employee, a monkey can do your job. How can you screw it up? How do you feel when somebody says a monkey can do your job?
Mm-hmm.
Every single role in an organization has a critical piece to it. Every single one. If you're in payroll and people don't get paid, that's a problem. If you're in customer service and those customers aren't taken great care of, that's a problem. If you're in sales and you're not growing the company, that's a problem. So it's not a matter of one, it's a matter of, do you need these positions? And if you do, you treat them all like the gold they are.
Tune in next week for part 3 of Friends from Wild Places.
You've been listening to Friends from Wild Places with Shireen Bueta. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast from the links to catch every episode and unleash your passion.